Over the last couple of years, the role of the director has completely changed. We live in an era where technology is constantly evolving, and it's up to us in the television industry to keep up with it. With that, the role of the director is more important now than ever before. Now, in years past, the director was the set of eyes and glue that put that newscast, football game, or reality show you were watching at home all together. Directors work hand in hand with producers to make sure the correct elements are going on air at the right time in the right format. As a director, we are responsible mainly for quality control. We make sure the product going over air looks the best it possibly can and exactly how it's formatted after being handed down from the producer. Our producers are responsible for finding the most relevant stories and any breaking news for the day and integrating them into the newscast. Once they get those stories and events from the day, they track down the most compelling video and send us all the graphics we'll need directly to our Chiron computer. When they finalize that, they leave it in our hands to bring the show to life. These two positions will always be linked to one another in regards to any form of production. Each director and producer can't make the show happen without one or the other. Before the onset of automation, which is what we use now, the director would essentially coach the technical director, or what we call the TD, through the show so the TD didn't have to monitor everything else going on. Consider all the different things happening over the course of a show that you have to keep an eye on. You've got to make sure cameras and talent are in their spots, the correct video is queued up, correct graphics on air, good audio while preparing for what's coming next. It was pretty necessary to have that extra set of eyes. Well, that's not the case anymore. In case you don't know, the TD is the person who would sit in front of the switcher taking cues from the director of what they want on air next. They're responsible for pressing all those awesome buttons which put up the next element of the show, whether it's a camera shot of talent on the set, video showing what the anchors might be talking about in a given story, or a live shot out in the field with a reporter covering breaking news. We have access to everything we need with just a click of a button right in front of us. Now, with the evolution of technology, the director and TD is more of a combined role now thanks to automation. You may have heard the term before. Automation is a more computer-driven way of doing shows. We went from having to worry about 200 plus buttons to managing maybe 20 to 30 over the course of a newscast. This is all thanks to pre-built codes that relay messages to the switcher, and the computer does a lot of the work for us. Now, there is still a physical switcher right next to us in the event of an emergency and say something happens to the automation computer. It's also there because, well, the computer still communicates with the switcher, and that's technically what is punching what we want on air. We're just telling it what to do with those awesome pre-built codes that I mentioned a little bit before. That frees up a lot of time for the director to monitor all those moving elements. Directors are essentially their own camera operators in the studio because the tech evolution has even changed the way we use cameras. Nowadays, most stations, including ours, work with robotic cameras that have pre-built shots that we set at our disposal. No more floor directors or production assistants needed to set the shots. All we need to do is either drop a code with the shot that we want into the rundown or simply press the button of the shot needed on a controller that sits right next to us. Now, the same can't be said for live reporters out in the field, as they and their photographers are in complete control of their own shots, but we are in direct contact with them in case we need to make some adjustments. So communication is as important as ever with the director and talent, either out in the field or in the studio. With nobody needed to run the floor anymore in the studio, directors need to also make sure the talent in the studio are in the right spots. Being in the wrong spot can really throw off the flow of the show. One of the most important roles of the director now is running audio as well. I will always say the most likely thing to get viewers to change the channel is really bad audio. So it's important that we get it perfect and make sure all the correct mics are up at the right time. You can see in our audio booth, we don't have anyone sitting back there during the shows anymore. It all comes from that code I keep mentioning that we set up and drop in the rundown, and the computer handles the rest. It's really quite fascinating. We can control all the audio from a board that is roughly 30 times smaller than the solid state logic board we used to run off of. And you probably wouldn't even be able to tell a difference back home. With the role of the director changing exponentially as technology is evolving, we're able to condense 5 jobs into one: directing, technical directing, graphics, audio, and floor directors, which has freed up other positions to focus on other elements of the show. So with excellent communication between directors and producers, it's now possible to put on award-winning shows with just 2 people in the control room. If being a director is a career you wish to follow, I would try and watch as many behind-the-scenes videos as possible. Simply search "directing news behind the scenes" and you'll land on a goldmine of director reels. These are essentially the resumes of directors currently in the business and will be a great source to really understand what we do with visuals and audio cues to go along with it. Use that knowledge that you pull from that and apply it to a show or newscast you watch on TV and try and guide it along like a director would. Getting used to calling shows will go a long way. A lot of high schools also offer the opportunity to gain firsthand experience through production teams or clubs. Definitely take advantage of that if you have the opportunity to do so. Now, while it's not essential to earn a bachelor's degree to get in the industry, it definitely helps. Getting the real-world experience through college classes, especially the ones within your major of communications or broadcast journalism, you will really begin to understand the pacing of how quick newscasts move, on top of learning about the real-world impact you're about to make. When you begin to search for jobs, take any entry-level position you can, even if it's not in the part of the country you aspire to work in. You got to get a foot in the door first before you can really start to flourish. While college experience is great, the best experience will come from learning firsthand from those who've worked in the business for years. Soak it all in like a sponge. Even watching a live newscast each day and thinking about the process that's taking place behind the scenes will set you ahead of others looking to get in the field. Understanding the format of the shows as well as the pace and what elements to expect will look great when going to that first interview. After that, you're off and running.